Hello guys, welcome to my channel Study with me. I am Nagam Verma and I am going to teach you class 9 Beehive chapters 1 The Fun They Had. Here we have the introduction and this is the lesson explanation. The explanation is line by line and this red portion is the explanation. So we are going to start with the introduction. This is very light story. It is set in the future. It will make all of you love school. The stories regarding school life and how those children who do not go to school miss school. The setting of the story is in the future when perhaps there will be no school, no books. Now, how those students will miss going to the school and will feel that their ancestors, that is present generation, you all had fun to going to school, meeting and helping each other. In the end, we come to know that this is the imagination of a young girl named Margie, who comes to know that their ancestor used to go to school. All the children used to study together. She feels that they all had a lot of fun when they went to school. So, when we read this story, we feel that school life is very good. And we are fortunate that we have real schools where we go, meet friends, and get a chance to study together. This is the lesson explanation. Margie even wrote about it that night in her diary. On the page headed 17 May 2157, she wrote, "Today Tommy found a real book." Explanation. Margie is the main character of the story. She is a girl of 11 years of age. She writes a diary on the night of 17th May 2157. Right now we are living in, it's not 2018, it's 2020. As told earlier, the story is set in the future and it is set in the year 2157. So almost 1.5 century, that is 140 years from now. At that time, Margie writes an entry in her diary and she writes that Tommy found a real book and she is feeling so strange because in her time real books do not exist. They only have e-book, means the virtual books. So the books in the format of print on paper are extinct, and so Margie is astonished to see real book. It was very old book. Margie's grandfather once said that when he was little boy, his grandfather told him that there was a time when all stories were printed on paper. Margie is reminded of her grandfather. He told her that his grandfather studied all the books that were printed on paper. So this kind of book is historical or ancient for them. Something which they cannot believe. They can't imagine. They turned the pages, which were yellow and crinkly. And it was awful funny to read the words that stood still instead of moving the way they were supposed to on a screen. Crinkly, with many folds or line. This blue portion is the meaning of the words. Something that is crushed. Margie is talking about the book that Tommy had found. She says that the pages of the book had turned yellow and they had been crushed as it was very old. The children found it very funny to read the books which stood still. Now, what does it mean by the words that stood still? As the words were printed on pages, they do not move. On the other hand, the books that the Margie and Tommy read were online, e-books, like we are reading now. We are reading all the e-books nowadays. So, in the e-books, how it happens? The text keeps on moving as your screen moves, but it was different in the books printed on paper. And then, when they turned back to the page before, it had the same word on it that it had when they read it the first time. This was very strange experience for these children. When you have a book which is printed on paper, whenever you flip the pages, you get to see the same thing written on the pages. On the other hand, in an e-book, the text keeps on changing on the screen. The screen is same. You have the same screen in front of you, but the text keeps on changing. So whenever you go back, the text is different. Gee, said Tommy. What a waste. When you are through with the book, you just throw it away, I guess. A television screen must have had a million books on it, and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw it away. Tommy disliked the printed books. He said that it was a waste because it felt that whenever you complete reading a book, you have to throw it away. You cannot have some different stories written on the same book. On the contrary, he felt that the computer screen is very good because the same screen had shown him many books and still he could read many more on it. He would not have to throw that screen away when once he had read a particular story. Same with mine, said Margie. She was 11 and hadn't seen any telebook as Tommy had. He was 13. Margie agreed with Tommy's opinion. Margie was 11 years of a girl of age and she has not read as many books as Tommy had because Tommy was older to Margie. He was 13 years of age. She said, "Where did you find it?" Margie asked Tommy that where did he found the printed book. "In my house," he pointed without looking because he was busy reading in the attic, a space just below the roof, used as a storeroom. Tommy replied Margie that he found a printed book in a storeroom of his house. He was busy in reading the book that he did not remove his glance from the book. "What's it about?" Margie asked that what the book was about. "School." Tommy replied that the book was about school, about going to school, about the life of school. Margie was scornful. "School? What's there to write about school? I hate school." Scornful. Showing you think something is worthless. Show your dislike for something. Contemptuous. Margie hated the word school, and so she said that what was there to write about school? That an entire book had been written about school. Margie always hated school, but now she hated it more than ever. The mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography, and she had been doing worse and worse until her mother had shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the county inspector. What is Margie's school? Margie's school is a mechanical teacher. A mechanical teacher, that means the machine which teaches you, and not that school where we all go. Now, why did Margie hate school? Margie's school was a virtual classroom. It was not real school like we have today. So, in the future, we are thinking that the school will be virtual classrooms. There will be machines that will be teaching the children. Margie hated this machine because it was giving her so many tests in geography, which were very difficult for her, and she was performing very bad. Finally, her mother thought that there was something wrong with the machine, and so she called the county inspector to check it. He was a round little man with a red face and a whole box of tools with dials and wires. The county inspector came to check the mechanical teacher. He was a round little man and he had a rat face. He was carrying a big box full of tools with the dials and wires. He smiled at Margie and gave her an apple. Then took the teacher apart. So this man opened the machine. He was there to repair the computer. Margie had hoped he won't know how to put it together again, but he knew how all right. And after an hour or so, there it was again, large and black and ugly, with a big screen on which all the lessons were shown and the questions were asked. Once he had opened the computer, Margie wished that he won't be unable to close it back because she don't like the computer. She did not like to study from this teacher, but the man was an expert, and within an hour he had repaired the computer and had closed it and made it ready to teach Margie once again. Margie gives a description of computer. She feels that it is a very huge, it is black in color, and she dislikes its appearance. It has a big screen and all the lessons appear on the screen, and many questions are asked on the same screen which are difficult for Margie. That wasn't so bad. The part Margie hated most was the slot where she had to put the homework and test paper slot, a given space, time or position. Margie hated the mechanical teacher the most because she had to submit her homework and test papers to it. She always had to write them out in a punch code. They made her learn when she was 6 years old, and the mechanical teacher calculated the marks in no time. Margie had to write the homework and her test papers in a particular punch code, that is, a computing language. She had learned the language at the age of 6. The machine checked the papers and calculated the marks in a few seconds. The inspector had smiled after he was finished and patted Margie's head. He said to her mother, "It's not the little girl's fault, Mr. Jones. I think the geography sector was geared and was little too quick." Geared, adjusted to a particular standard or level. So the county inspector said that Margie was getting bad marks in geography because the machine was not working properly. It was geared to a higher level. Those things happen sometimes. I have slowed it up to an average 10-year level. He said that sometimes machine malfunctioned and that is what had happened. He had slowed it down and set it to the pace of a learner of 10 years of age. Actually, the overall pattern of her progress is quite satisfactory. And he patted Marchie's head again. He said Margie was learning at a good pace. He again patted Margie's head in the order to cheer her up. Margie was disappointed. She had been hoping that they would take the teacher away altogether. Margie was sad because she did not want to learn. She did want to study from this machine and she wanted that the inspector should take it away. They had once taken Tommy's teacher away for nearly a month because the history sector had blanked out completely. Blanked out. It has been erased. Margie is reminded of the time when Tommy's mechanical teacher had been taken away for repair for almost 1 month, and he was enjoying his time as he didn't have any teacher. He had been taken away because the history sector portion of the machine that taught the history subject had been wiped out. So the mechanical teacher did not have any memory of it and had to be taken away for repair. So she said to Tommy, "Why should anyone write about school?" Now, when we know the reason for Margie's dislike for school, so she asked Tommy that why would anyone write about school? Tommy looked at her with very superior eyes. Because it's not a kind of school, stupid. This is the old kind of school that they had hundred years ago. Tommy was looking at Margie with superior eyes because he knew something that Margie was not aware of. He said that the Margie was silly because she did not know that many years ago the school was not the kind they had. He added loftily, pronouncing the word carefully, centuries ago. Loftily, in a superior way. Tommy wanted to stress on the time period and said that centuries ago the school were not like the ones they had. Margie was hurt. Well, I don't know what kind of school they had all the time ago. She read the book over his shoulders for a while. Then she said, "Anyway, they had a teacher." Margie was hurt at Tommy's behavior, and she said that she did not know what kind of schools they had centuries ago. She was curious and imagined a group of children being taught by a human teacher. She looked over Tommy's shoulder, trying to read the book, and said that perhaps they had a teacher. They had a teacher. It was a man. Sure, they had a teacher, but it wasn't a regular teacher. It was a man. Regular here means normal or of usual kind. Tommy is referring to a machine teacher as a regular teacher because that is what they are used to. That is the teacher they had. a machine teacher. He said that it wasn't the machine, it was a human being who taught them. A man? How could a man be a teacher? Margie couldn't believe that a man was a teacher because she had always seen a machine doing that. Well, he just told the boys and girls things and gave them homework and asked the questions. Tommy tells that the men who taught the class discussed many things with the students, gave them homework, and then asked them different questions based on it, just like the mechanical teacher did. A man isn't smart enough. Margie said that a man teacher is not as smart, intelligent as the machine teacher. Sure, he is. My father knows as much as my teacher. Tommy asked Margie not to underestimate the human teacher. He said that he is as knowledgeable as the machine. He compares the machine to his father and says that his father knows as much as his machine teacher. He knows almost as much as. I betcha. Betcha here means I bet you in fast speech. I'm sure. Tommy could bet it on that the human teacher knew as much as the mechanical teacher did. Margie wasn't prepared to dispute that. She said, I wouldn't want a strange man in my house to teach. Dispute, disagree with when you are opposing something. Margie did not want to discuss this further and added that she didn't want a strange man, the human teacher, to come to her house to teach her. Tommy screamed with a laughter. You don't know much, Margie. The teachers didn't live in the houses. They had a special building and all the kids went there. Tommy found it very funny when Margie said that. She did not want a strange man to come to her house to teach. He said that the teacher don't come to the students' house to teach them. They had a special building, a school. The student went to the school to study, and all the kids learned the same thing. Margie was astonished and asked that all the children learned the same thing. Sure, if they were of the same age. Tommy said that all the children of the same age study the same thing. But my mother says a teacher has to be adjusted to fit the mind of each boy and girl it teaches, and that each kid has to be taught differently. Margie refers to a machine teacher. She says that her mother told her that a machine had to be tuned to the level of each boy or a girl who was studying from it. So, each child had to be taught separately depending on their level. Just the same, they didn't do it that way. If you don't like it, you don't have to read the book. Tommy replied that in the past they did not do in that way. He got irritated at Margie and said that she need not to read the book. I didn't say I didn't like it. Margie said quickly. Margie is interested in the book. Margie is curious to know what kind of school were they. She wanted to read about those funny schools. Margie was inquisitive. She wanted to know what kind of schools therein were the past as she felt that they were fun. They weren't even half finished when Margie's mother called. Margie, school! Margie had read half of the book. When her mother called her, it was a time to attend her the virtual school. Margie looked up. Not yet, Mama. Margie's school was in the next room, next to her bedroom. She said to her mother, then not yet. She didn't want to go to school. Now, said Mrs. Jones. And it is probably time for Tommy too. Margie's mother told Tommy that it was time for him to go to school too. Margie said to Tommy, I can read the same book some more with you after school. Margie was interested so in reading the book that she asked Tommy if she could read with him after school. Maybe, he said, nonchalantly, not showing much interest, carelessly. Tommy tried to ignore her and said that maybe she could read it. He walked away whistling, the dusty old book tucked beneath his arm. Tommy was feeling very great because Margie was interested in reading the book. He placed the book under his arms and went off to his home. Margie went into the schoolroom. It was right next to her bedroom, and the mechanical teacher was on and waiting for her. Margie reached her school. It was a room next to her bedroom. It was virtual classroom. There was a machine teacher for Margie. It was on and it was waiting for her to begin teaching her. It was always on at the same time every day except Saturday and Sunday because her mother said little girl learn better if they learned at regular hours. Margie studied all days except Saturdays and Sundays at the same time from the mechanical teacher. Margie's mother was a very particular. She had told Margie that she would learn better if she would study every day. The screen was lit up and it said, Today's arithmetic lesson is on. The addition of proper fractions. Please insert yesterday's homework in a proper slot. Margie sat in front of the machine similar to a computer and the machine is turned on. It said that the lesson of the day was in arithmetic and the topic was addition of proper fraction. Further, it instructed her to insert the homework of the previous days in a slot for inserting homework. Margie did so with a sigh. Margie's life is also very mechanical, just like machine. There was no fun in her classrooms. It is very dull and boring, just like machine. She was thinking about the old school they had when her grandfathers and grandfather was a little boy. Margie is thinking of the story told her by her grandfather. Her grandfather told her that his grandfather used to go to school when he was a little boy. As Margie is bored with this machine, she reminded of that life. Together in the schoolroom, going home together at the end of the day. This is the life that you all are living at present. But for the future kids, it will be just a memory of the past. For them, it will be the history because their life will be very different. They'll study from machines. When Margie comes to know that in the past children used to go to school They sat together, laughed, shouted in the schools, and she get curious about it and want to go to school. The writer wants us to realize the importance of school in our life. Children sometimes get bored and fed up of going to schools. But if you don't have a school, you won't get to meet friends. Your life will be very dull and boring. They learn the same thing, so they could help one another with the homework and talked about. Margie feels that school is much fun. School In school, children get together. They studied in a fun way. They get the same homework and they can discuss it, take help, talk about it also. So all the students become friends and study in a fun way. The teacher were people. She found it very strange that the teacher were not machines, but they were human beings. The mechanical teacher was flashing on screen. When we add fraction 1 by 2 and 1 by 4 and so on. As Margie has inserted her homework, the machine started with lesson. There was no pause, no time for fun, no time for chatting and no time for interacting with friends. Margie was thinking about how the kids must have loved it in the old days. She was thinking about the fun they had. The author ends the story with the title of the chapter, The Fun They Had. The fun of the students had when they went to the real school. Margie is just thinking about the kids of the past who went to the school and enjoyed the life. Hope you understand the chapter, and here we have the summary. I'll give you the summary link in the description so that you can read it if you want. So, thank you for watching the video. Have a nice day, and if you liked it, please like, share and comment. If you have any doubt, comment below, and if you want me to explain you any other chapter, please tell me the name of the chapter in the comment section under 9th class. Thank you and have a nice day.